Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Konrad Gorlinski and this is the news. Well, Jarosław Kaczyński decisively rejected the prospect of Poland leaving the European Union structures. According to the peace president, Polexit is fake news, an idea of the opposition to sway public support in their direction. The deputy prime minister also stressed the importance of enacting the Polish New Deal. There is an information war around Poland's exit from the European Union. Deputy Prime Minister and President of Law and Justice Jarosław Kaczyński announced that he was against Polexit. Of course, Polexit is a fake news idea to increase public support. The government's position on the presence of Poland in the European Union was clearly formulated by Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki during the parliamentary debate on Thursday. According to the head of government, such a concept was born only in the imagination of politicians from the Civic Coalition. Polexit is fake news. The same fake news as when Tusk and the Civic Platform declared that he would not raise taxes, the retirement age, as well as fake news that he was not going to Europe or anywhere, that he was not looking for a position, and yet he left. Despite clear declarations by representatives of the United Right, the leader of the Civic Platform, Donald Tusk, carries on with a consistent policy of disinformation. I have no doubts that Poland in the European Union has never been and is not currently Jarosław Kaczyński's plan. This anti-European element, looking objectively pro-Russian, because from a geopolitical perspective their views align with Putin's conceptions, is in peace stronger than ever before. According to commentators, Polexit is an element of Donald Tusk's election game and serves to attract voters. Tusk simply became fixated on this Polexit. He thinks this is the only way to win against the government. Platform politicians are even starting to complain about it. However, in the long run, I would not be surprised if the actual goal of such actions was to lead to Polexit, because in a situation where we were a buffer state between Germany and Russia, politicians could run errands for one or the other partner. However, the narrative of Polexit hasn't brought an increase in support for the Civic Platform at all. According to the latest CBOS poll, if the elections were held in the first half of October, Law and Justice could count on the greatest support. 35% of respondents would vote for the ruling party, and 15% for the Civic Coalition. He places a very low value on polls' intelligence, very low. He believes that they are all less wise than he, and that by threatening with Polexit, Poles will throw themselves into the embrace of the platform, specifically Mr. Donald Tusk, and plead, "Mr. Tusk, please keep us in the European Union," etc. In an interview with RMF-FM, the peace president also set the most important goal of the Polish government. First of all, it should be implemented, made fact, and not just be an announcement. The new Polish order. It's a series of measures in various spheres. This project is strongly criticized by the president of Warsaw, Rafał Trzaskowski, who has expressed strong words about the consequences of the implementation of the Polish order by the government. He claims that the peace project will limit revenues to local government budgets, and the government will not finance projects such as, among others, in vitro procedures. Of course, it's a mega tax. The government itself has written that local governments will lose 145 billion. This is a cynical policy. First of all, this is a complete change of the Polish system, because 50% of taxes in Warsaw, which are earned by Warsaw women and Warsaw residents, remain in Warsaw for development. PiS wants to take part of this money and centralize the system. Rafał Trzaskowski's statements that the city no longer will have any money is hilarious. How, in a moment, there will be no money at all, because each such statement is illustrated with a powerful advertising campaign, billboards, banners. As it turns out, the city paid Ms. Grażyna Wolszczak a few thousand złotych just for getting off the tram and having a photo taken. So, saying the city might not have money is pretty ridiculous. The city obviously has a lot of savings it could make in case of an emergency. Jarosław Kaczyński announced that he was ready for a possible debate with Donald Tusk, provided that he would apologize to him. In reaction to this declaration, the chairman of the Civic Platform posted a sarcastic entry on Twitter with the words, "I'm sorry, Jarek." So, the question of a possible possible debate remains unresolved. Yesterday, as has been the routine for months now, thousands of Italians demonstrated in central Rome against their government's increasing encroachment on their civil rights. Italy has introduced a mandatory green pass for all workers in the country, and many citizens feel that this goes above any legislative competencies that could be possibly acceptable in a democratic state. The protesters gathered in the ancient arena of Circus Maximus and shouted slogans such as "Freedom, freedom," and denounced the introduction of the measure as a tool they say limits their civil rights.
I'm here because I'm against any type of green pass, any type of certificate, vaccine or whatnot, certificate to work. It goes against our rights, our human rights. It goes against the Italian constitutional rights as well.
The rule, one of the world's strictest anti-COVID measures, was approved by the Italian government in September, making it obligatory from October 15th for all workers either to show proof of vaccination, a negative test, or recent recovery from infection. Under the rule, effective until year-end, workers without the so-called Green Pass will be suspended without pay and face a fine of up to 1,500 euros if they try to work on regardless. They damage our freedom. I want to be the one who decides. I don't know if they tell me lies or if the vaccines have been tested. Why do I have to take the risk? Opinion polls show that most Italians are indifferent to the situation. But protests turned violent in Rome last Saturday when demonstrators stormed the offices of the country's largest trade union. And last night, China launched a rocket carrying 3 astronauts, including 1 woman, to the core module of a future space station where they will live and work for 6 months, the longest ever duration in orbit for Chinese astronauts. A Long March 2F rocket carrying the Shenzhou 13 spacecraft, which means divine vessel in Chinese, blasted off from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in the northwestern province of Gansu at 12:23 a.m. Beijing time. China began construction of the space station in April with the launch of Tianhe, the first and largest of the station's 3 modules. Slightly bigger than a city bus, Tianhe will be the living quarters of the completed space station. Shenzhou, the first crewed mission that concluded in September, 3 other astronauts stayed on Tianhe for 90 days. In the latest mission, astronauts will carry out tests of the key technology and robotics on Tianhe needed to assemble the space station, verify onboard life support systems, and conduct a host of scientific experiments. China, barred by U.S. law from working with NASA and by extension on the International Space Station, the ISS, has spent the past decade developing technologies to build its own station. With the ISS set to retire in a few years, China's space station will become the only one in Earth's orbit. China's space program has come far since late leader Mao Zedong lamented that the country could not even launch a potato into space. China became the 3rd country to put a man in space with its own rocket in October 2003, after the former Soviet Union and the United States. And finally, on the beautiful island of Bali in Indonesia, an earthquake of magnitude 4.8 struck early this morning, killing at least 3 people. Indonesia's search and rescue agency has said the quake affected the Karangasem and Bangli districts on the eastern side of the island. A landslide triggered by the quake killed 2 of the victims, the agency said. A third, a 3-year-old girl, was killed by falling debris. The U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, said the 4.8 magnitude quake struck off Banjarwangsiam and put its depth at 10 kilometers. The local search and rescue official, Gede Darmada, said in a statement that all affected by the quake have been evacuated, while data is still being collected by the local disaster mitigation agency. emergency. Rescue services evacuated people across a lake as the road to the stricken community had been cut off by a landslide, he added. There was no significant damage in other parts of Bali, while the quake was also felt in the neighboring island of Lombok, local media reported. Bali reopened for international tourists on Thursday after 18 months of pandemic restrictions, but they're only expected to start arriving later this month. As usual, thanks for tuning in with us this evening. Please stay with us for Poland Daily Weather, Poland Daily Business, and other programs. But from me, it's have a great Saturday night.